God, I'm sick of that intro. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's that time of the year again, Christmas time. And I figured there's no better present in the world than to get to my subscribers than by reviewing a Sonic game. So without further ado, here is my review of Sonic Colors. Okay, I'm going to stop wearing this hat now. Oh, Sonic, I can never seem to escape you. There's no doubt in my head that my Sonic reviews are without a doubt my most popular. In fact, as soon as this game was released, I already had tons of people asking me when I'm going to review it. Well, here it is. Now, when you think of Sonic in the Third Dimension, one usually thinks of something mediocre or just plain bad, and well, I certainly don't blame them. I mean, things were looking pretty sweet with Sonic Adventure and Sonic Adventure 2, but then things started to go downhill with Sonic Heroes. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's still an okay game, but I certainly don't find it as good as the adventure titles. Then Shadow the Hedgehog came along, which was downright atrocious, and then Sonic 06 came about and showed us the Hedgehog at its absolute worst in 3D. Things started to look up with Sonic Unleashed, but even that game had its share of problems that kept it from being a great game. The Sonic stages were pretty good, but the Warhawk stages were just flat out unnecessary. I stated that if the game consisted of nothing but Sonic stages, it would probably be my favorite 3D Sonic game by far. Then, in the middle of the Sonic 4 hype, Sonic Colors was announced, taking many by surprise, including myself. And wouldn't you know, it's nothing but Unleashed-styled Sonic stages. So somebody is obviously listening to what the people want, but how much so? Well, I can say this now. This is certainly one of the best Sonic games released in years. Better than Heroes, better than Unleashed, certainly right up there with the adventure titles, probably better than Adventure 2 even. Yes, I did just say that. Sonic Colors is without a doubt one of the most lighthearted Sonic games in the series. In fact, comparing this game's plot to plots in previous 3D games would be like comparing SpongeBob SquarePants to Batman the animated series. There's no mythical beast looking to wreak havoc, there's no stupid alien race that wants to destroy the world, and there's no demonic time-traveling creature that's voiced by Dan Green. It's just your classic Sonic vs. Eggman, and I couldn't have it any other way. Dr. Eggman, apparently feeling remorse for his past misdeeds, decides to make it all up by building a gigantic amusement park that's so absurdly large it makes Disney World look like, well, whatever's smaller than Disney World.
This amusement park has been constructed entirely out of a sense of remorse for my past transgressions, and is in no way associated with any sort of evil plot or premeditated misdeeds. Liar!
Sonic, being the hero as always, doesn't believe Dr. Eggman at all and decides to see what's really going on, along with his faithful sidekick Tails. Upon getting there, they find out that Eggman is really using his amusement park as a way to capture these alien creatures known as Wisps.
Wisps?
No, Wisps, with a W.
Yeah, I'll just stick with aliens if that's okay with everybody.
It turns out that Wisps possess incredible energy that Eggman wants to harness and use to take over the world. Sonic and Tails decide to stop Dr. Eggman by destroying all the generators that's holding all the tiny planets together and foil whatever Dr. Eggman has up his sleeve. And that's pretty much it in terms of plot. Yeah, I'm serious, it's an incredibly simple story that for a Sonic game works pretty damn well. The story was written from the same people who wrote Mad World and Happy Tree Friends, and though I've never played Mad World or seen any episode of Happy Tree Friends, I can say now that this is some of the best writing a Sonic game has ever had. I mean, yeah, there are a few cringeworthy jokes here and there, but there are many times where I found myself cracking a smile or outright laughing at some of the things Sonic, Tails, or Dr. Eggman say.
Meeting so soon! There are no lines, and I've saved the best rides for last! At least let me stamp your hand so you can come back in!
I know you're trying to be clever with this whole amusement park pun thing, but it's just coming off lame. So just say you're going to destroy us and stop embarrassing yourself.
Curse you, Sonic! Not only do you foil my plans, but you foil my speeches as well! I work hard on them!
And yes, those are new voices you are hearing. Roger Craig Smith, better known as Chris Redfield from Resident Evil 5 and Ezio from Assassin's Creed 2, is now the voice of Sonic the Hedgehog. Tails, who couldn't decide whether or not he was a 4-year-old boy or girl, is now voiced by Kate Higgins, who's done a shitload of voiceover work, none of which I've ever heard. Though I will say that she's without a doubt the best Tails voice I've ever heard, so she was definitely a good pick. The only returning voice actor is Mike Pollock as Dr. Eggman, who I'm very glad they kept. He was the best thing to come out of the 4Kids group. In fact, let's take this time to say farewell to the former voice actors. They will be forever missed.
Woohoo! Now we're talking! Bring it on! Don't you dare turn your back on me!
Find the computer room!
Where's that damn fourth Chaos Emerald? Police!
Sonic Colors' gameplay style is largely similar to that of the Sonic Daytime stages in the HD version of Sonic Unleashed. Returning from Sonic Unleashed is the Boost feature, where Sonic can hurl through stages at incredible speeds. But this time, instead of collecting rings to fill the boost gauge, you need to collect white wisps, which are nowhere near as plentiful as rings. With that said, you won't find yourself blazing through stages nearly as often as you would in Unleashed, which to me is a positive, because like I said before, speed is nice, but if it's all you're doing, then I might as well be playing a racing game. The game supports up to 4 different controller types: the Wiimote alone, Wiimote and Nunchuck combination, Classic controller, and the GameCube controller. Personally, I prefer the GameCube controller the most, but the Wiimote Nunchuck combination isn't so bad either. So with less emphasis on speed, we have a much larger focus on platforming, obstacles, and stage gimmicks. Many obstacles from Sonic's past have made a return here, ranging from spikes, different flavors of egg bots, classic badniks, and whatever stage hazard the game throws at you. Returning from Sonic Unleashed is Sonic's ground stomp, the wall jump, and the air boost, so you no longer have to acquire upgrades to use them. They're available right from the start. Though the light speed dash is nowhere to be seen. Why did they take that move out? Because a majority of the game is from the 2D perspective, I thought this is where the spin dash would make its return, especially considering that the boost is no longer as abusable as it was in Unleashed. But no, it's still not here. Why not? There are plenty of sections in the game where I would have found the spin dash useful, so what the hell, Sonic Team? New to Sonic's arsenal of moves is his double jump. Well, okay, it's not new. He originally had it in Sonic R, and if you want to count Super Smash Bros. Brawl, then go right ahead. But anyway, by pressing the jump button a second time in midair, Sonic will add a little more height to his jump. Unfortunately, with the way Sonic handles, it's kinda unnecessary and controls a bit awkwardly. What I mean by that is that Sonic's jump overall feels a bit stiff. You can't really influence your direction in mid-air once you make a jump. I wouldn't say it's as bad as the old school Castlevania games, but it comes close. With a double jump, you can attempt to fix your positioning to make sure you don't overshoot a platform, but it can be pretty finicky. Luckily, most of the platforms are about as wide as an elephant, so it's really only a problem when you have to deal with those really tiny platforms. There's a total of 7 different locations in Sonic Colors: Tropical Resort, Sweet Mountain, Starlight Carnival, Planet Wisp, Aquarium Park, Asteroid Coaster, and Terminal Velocity. Tropical Resort is like a giant lobby, serving as a big entrance into Eggman's amusement park, though really, it's one big tutorial planet letting you get used to all of Sonic's abilities. Sweet Mountain is a planet made of nothing but food. I wouldn't even begin to ask how that will work, but who knows, maybe the developers really liked Cloudy with the chance of meatballs. Starlight Carnival is a world that puts Tron to shame. I'm serious, there's bright colors everywhere, look at this. Planet Wisp, as you will probably expect from the name, is the homeworld of the Wisps. Since Eggman hasn't fully converted it into a theme park attraction, it's still under construction, meaning there's tons of dangerous shit you need to avoid. Aquarium Park, or as I like to call it, Chunnan Underwater, has a very oriental theme, complete with crap loads of water. So you know what that means, you're gonna have to avoid the water like the plague, because Sonic can— Hey! Holy shit, Sonic can actually go underwater now? Son of a bitch, look at this, he can actually swim! Well, I guess if jumping infinitely underwater can count as swimming, but thank God, Sonic's no longer allergic to water! Asteroid Coaster is pretty much exactly how it sounds. There's a shit ton of roller coasters and asteroids. Nothing much else to say. Look, Saturn. Terminal Velocity, the final area of the game, is thankfully nowhere near as punishing as Eggman Land. In fact, there's barely any level in here at all. You're just running away from a crap load of things. I think the developers caught on that a lot of people thought Eggman Land was too long and tough, but I think they tried too hard to make it easier because the stage is practically nothing, especially its second act. The main gimmick of Sonic Colors is the little alien creatures known as Wisps. There's a total of 7 Wisps you can attain: Laser, Drill, Spike, Rocket, Cube, Hover, and Frenzy. Simply put, they're power-ups and nothing more. When you run into a Wisp capsule, you can activate its power by pressing the corresponding button on the screen. Cyan Wisp allows Sonic to use the power of the Laser, which Sonic zips through everything and destroys anything in his path. It can also be used to ricochet off walls with these diamond-shaped obstacles, allowing you to reach areas that Sonic couldn't get to by himself. The Yellow Wisp allows Sonic to turn into a drill, where he can burrow through certain types of ground and locate different sections of the stage, as well as some hidden goodies. If you ever played Nights into Dreams, then you'll know exactly how to control Sonic when using it. The Orange Wisp allows Sonic to transform into a rocket and blast off to an enormously high altitude, where he can proceed to slowly freefall his way to safety, though I really don't get how that works. I mean, can Sonic ignore gravity at will now? Yeah, whatever. The Pink Wisp allows Sonic to transform into a spiky ball. Couldn't he do that naturally? Anyway, while in this form, Sonic can cling onto any surface, allowing him to scale walls and again reach things that Sonic couldn't get to on his own. By pressing down the boost button while in this mode, Sonic can do the spin dash.
Why didn't you just give that to Sonic's natural moveset?
Moving on, the Blue Wisp allows Sonic to transform into a cube and cause blue rings to transform into solid platforms and vice versa. Out of all the Wisps, you won't be using this one that often because it's mostly situational and really only needed to get to that bunch of rings you wanted to collect because you wanted a higher score. Also, it's probably just me, but does the theme music for the Blue Wisp remind anybody else of Seinfeld?
Oh, I know the chunky that left these chunkies! Newman!
The Green Wisp allows Sonic to temporarily fly. It's almost like you're controlling Tails, only nowhere near as fast. By pressing the boost button near a trail of rings, you can perform the light speed dash.
Stop doing that!
Finally, the Purple Wisp allows Sonic to transform into a disgruntled Pac-Man that devours anything it comes into contact with. The more things you munch, the bigger it gets to the point where it starts sucking things in. During 2D sections, this Wisp is pretty fun to use, but in 3D sections, it's a pain. It controls like total ass because the thing constantly moves forward, allowing you to only slightly tilt in the direction you want to move to. It's incredibly stiff. Well, luckily, it isn't used that much, so the pain is only temporary. Overall, the Wisp are a fun addition to the game, and most of the time they're completely optional and really only used to get to alternate paths or areas that contain hidden goodies. To me, that's how a gimmick should work. It shouldn't be something that's forced down our throats. In terms of stage progression, it's incredibly simple. After completing a stage, you're taken to the world map, in which you simply move Sonic to the next stage and bam, you're there. No unnecessary hub worlds and no metal collecting to open up new stages, thank God. When you're finished with all the stages in a certain world, you can simply select the next planet you want to go to. You're free to select any stage you've completed at any time, which is always a plus in my book with a game like this. Now, unlike Sonic Unleashed, there's no mandatory metal collecting. Instead, scattered throughout each stage are red rings that you can collect to unlock stages in Game Land, home to Eggman's Sonic Simulator. Simply put, in this world you can play in over 21 different levels accompanied by 8-bit versions of music used in other worlds. The stages are very simple in look, but it has a psychedelic feel that reminds me of the classic Sonic games, especially with the backgrounds. And if you know your classic Sonic, some of these level designs may look awfully familiar to you. There's also the special capsule that can release an Eggman head that looks like it wants to date rape me. Ew. You can also play along with a friend, so if you want to see who's the better gamer, give it a shot. You can also play as your Mii. Well, actually it's just your Mii's head on a robot Sonic's body, which is a little disheartening. But it's probably the only time you can see Chuck Norris, Captain Falcon, or Bob Ross playing a Sonic game. By finishing the third stage in each world of Game Land, you can obtain a Chaos Emerald, which is needed to unlock the final stage. No, wait. What? Why is the option satellite glowing like that? An option for Super Sonic? What does that mean?
Super Sonic!
Oh! Am I seeing things? Super Sonic playable in regular stages in a 3D Sonic game? Yes! Holy shit, if Super Sonic returning in Sonic 4 wasn't enough, Sonic Colors takes it up a notch by finally having Super Sonic playable in a 3D Sonic game. Granted, a majority of the game is 2D, but come on, this is freaking awesome. Thank you, Sonic Team, you're really showing that you're learning from past mistakes. The only problem with Super Sonic, however, is that you can't use Wisp while in this mode, but honestly, if I'm playing the Super Sonic, the only thing I want to do is run into everything at the speed of light. Graphically speaking, wow. If there's one thing that Sonic Team is consistent in, it's making Sonic games look absolutely beautiful, and this game is certainly no exception. If it isn't the colorful areas of Starlight Carnival that'll capture your eye, Planet Wisp section certainly will. The character models are spot on as well, and are running off the Wii's hardware. They're almost as polished as the models in the HD versions of Sonic Unleashed. The music is awesome, but then again, I was kind of expecting that since this is Sonic the Hedgehog we're talking about here. I mean hell, Sonic 06, as horrible as it was, still had awesome music. Most of the music is incredibly upbeat and extremely catchy. In fact, I think it's better than Sonic Unleashed. Especially the final boss music, which is just absolutely incredible. Hell, I think it's better than the final boss music in Sonic 06. Yep, I just said that. Now, overall, Sonic Colors is a pretty great game, but it does have its share of problems. For one thing, the game is incredibly short and pretty damn easy. Most stages will only take you a few minutes to beat, and even less time if you use Wisp effectively. You are encouraged to revisit stages not only to collect more red rings, but to further improve your score. If that's your sort of thing, then it's no problem, but I know there's tons of people out there who wish there was a bit more to do in this game. Now, when I say it's pretty easy, I'm talking more about the boss fights. These have to be some of the easiest bosses in Sonic history, and they're even more easy when you use the power of the Wisp. Unfortunately, this also holds true to the final boss fight. While I'm glad that the game no longer runs with the Monster of the Week formula that's been overused in previous 3D games, the fight is pathetically easy. I'll leave it at that. The 3D sections are also somewhat disappointing. About 85% of the game is from the 2D perspective. When the game switches to 3D, you're either running in a straight line, drifting into a 2D section with absolutely no obstacles to get in your way, or avoiding obstacles that require you to do nothing but press left or right at the correct time. I know the 3D perspective for Sonic has been an incredibly bumpy ride, but the answer isn't to cut away from it entirely. You just have to keep trying until you get it right. Just take a look at the adventure games. Now that's how you should make Sonic perform in 3D. You know, only make it less buggy. Finally, and I brought this up a bit earlier, but the control could have been slightly better. I mean, for the most part, Sonic controls how I'd like him to, but there are occasional moments where I lose control of myself because of Sonic's stiff jump and unreliable double jump. I'm also not keen on the fact that Sonic can't change his direction in mid-air. That just screams 8-bit, and I don't know if you noticed, but we live in a time where smooth mid-air controls is mandatory in just about everything nowadays. The classic games have better mid-air control than this. Also, why can't I homing attack on Wisp capsules? You can do it in the DS version of the game. Oh right, this game was also released on the Nintendo DS. Well, you guys know that there's no way I can record DS footage unless I'm unaware of something here, so... Sonic Colors on the DS plays exactly like the Rush titles. Boosting is aplenty and the entire game is 2D. The homing attack, which was sort of already in the first two Rush titles, is now fully implemented in this game, and it works incredibly well. The trick system from the first two games is nowhere to be seen, so in order to fill up the boost gauge, you need to collect white wisps, like in the console game. The wisps work like they do in the console version, but this game has two exclusive wisps that aren't in the console version. the Red Wisp and the Violet Wisp. The Red Wisp turns Sonic into a fireball and allows Sonic to jump an infinite number of times, while the Violet Wisp allows Sonic to literally transform into a black hole and suck everything up. It also lets him fly. Now, while it plays like the Sonic Rush titles, I think the level design beats the shit out of those two games. The level designs are nowhere near as linear as the previous games, and there's definitely a greater focus on platforming. The bosses are still pathetically easy though, and the true final boss is such an ass pull it hurts. Overall, Sonic Colors for the DS is definitely my favorite of the Rush series, so you should definitely give it a shot. I'll go more in depth when I find a way to record DS footage, and when that time arrives, I'll also go into the Rush series in general. But going back to the console version, it's definitely one of the best Sonic games released in years. Sonic Team is finally starting to show Sonic the respect he rightfully deserves, especially because this guy had some of the best 2D platforming games in the 90s. Though the game is not everything I expect from a 3D Sonic game, it's still incredibly fun and should be in every Sonic fan's collection. Hell, even if you're not a fan of Sonic, try the game out, you might end up loving it. Great story, great gameplay, and definitely great music.
So, how about you and me make like Eggman's hairline and recede?
I'll give it a 9 out of 10. With that said, I'm Johnny the Super Gamer Brothers. You guys have a great night, happy holidays, and take care.